what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GRP. Back on a Thursday, doing it again. And yeah, it's been a week. But we're back to talk about everything MMA because there was lots of MMA happening last weekend while the big UFC 307 pay-per-view card was going on. The I guess you can say disappointing watch party happened. Only disappointing because of technical difficulties that I'm tired of talking about, but I had them again. So I'm gonna touch on that in just a second. But yeah, we had a big pay-per-view last weekend. Pretty decent card of fights. I mean, there was some snoozers in there, in the middle somewhere, but and then just some unexpected stuff happening. We're definitely going to get into all that off the jump, actually, because I'm not gonna stick to combat sports news first because there's not a whole lot going on with that. It's weird because when there's no controversies and no fighters acting up and being crazy in the news and doing stupid shit, there's not a ton to talk about. I see other podcasts and other shows and stuff just diving deep into, I don't know, random stuff. And I guess that's the only good part to me doing this for me, is that I can just cover the fights and not worry about the rest of it, because the rest of it is, I mean, you'll see it on social media. That's pretty much as far as it needs to go. There's some things that are just not even worth talking about. It's just like random and passing. A lot of people would say some of the bigger controversies don't need to be talked about either, but if it's in the news and it's kind of a viral thing, then definitely going to talk about it. But yeah, when there's not a lot going on, it's kind of rough for me as far as speaking of on anything other than the actual fights that have happened or are going to happen. But it is what it is. I still make my time out of it, and I still get through everything and still talk about what I like, which is fighting. So yeah, I guess I can't complain too much because I still get to do it. At least there's events happening. There's a fight night going on this weekend. Back to the Apex back in Vegas, which Vegas isn't the problem. The Apex is the problem. But I guess they haven't had one there in quite a while that I remember. I think it's been longer than it had been in a minute. So either way, but they're back over there. And I think the next two events in a row are at the Apex. So back to that shit for now. And then we got UFC 308, which I just learned today. Stupid me, I should have known, but the next event in Abu Dhabi. It's the second pay-per-view of the month. UFC 308, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. And I just realized today that that main card is going to be starting at 11 a.m. for me in Arizona. I was actually disappointed with the watch party this past weekend because of all the problems I had. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take a break from the watch parties, and I'm not even going to have one this week. This pay-per-view coming up. I'm just going to sit and chill and watch the fights and have a good time with the people that are here at my house, and maybe invite a couple more over. And I started doing all that, and then I realized, oh, shit. It's in Abu Dhabi, and that means an early start time. That doesn't always mean that, but this time it does. So maybe that's why they put 2 in a month, because they knew that one wasn't going to be during, prime time hours for the U.S. So get ready, try to remember, take a note, do something. But the main card in the U.S. is going to be, it's going to be going on early. So TKO incoming for who, and who's going to be doing the knocking out. Cold Art Maker in the chat. As usual, first one in the chat says a couple things, and then I don't hear from him. But that's okay. I appreciate the chat. I do want to know what he's talking about, though, because he just said W and then TKO incoming. So I'm wondering what he's talking about. But anyway, I got, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway is going to be a fun fight, I think. You don't hear Max Holloway talking a lot of shit. Max Holloway TKO's Ilia Dr. Stoppage. Okay. How did you do on your picks last week? I'm just curious. I think I do remember Cold Art Maker saying that Khalil was going to get a decision win, if I remember correctly. Which, don't get me wrong, it was looking like that was a possibility until the until that fourth round. Because the beginning rounds, wow, Khalil did a damn good job. So, but my picks weren't great. I still am like owing a lifetime with my parlays because I refuse to make single line bets, and maybe that's my problem. Maybe I need to bet like $5 to win like 15, and then maybe I'll win those. Because anytime I'm betting anything to win like $80 or $100, I never win. It's stupid. And I don't know why I keep talking about it. It's embarrassing. I can't win any of my parlays. But I mean, you know what? It's kind of fun. It still brings a little bit of something to the fights. But I do find myself, rooting for people when maybe I'm not usually gonna root for them, but I'm like, it's gonna be tough to beat this person. But he put up a fight. No, for real, Cold Art Maker definitely put up a fight. He said Khalil gassed out, only cardio issues. Listen, man, cardio or not, if that cardio would have held up, I mean, he got his face fucking mangled. So I don't know if his cardio held up, if his body would have held up, because we're talking rearranging of a face. Not as bad as Irene Aldana with that crazy cut, if you saw that a few weeks ago, but Khalil got some work put on his face, and as good as he did, he was a goddamn warrior with all that blood coming out of his face, all those cuts that happened. But yeah, he Infinity said, "What's up, Infinity?" He said, "Easy bleeder." Well, you know what? And I'll go over this when we get into it more, but I do want to point out that Khalil already had something going on with the bridge of his nose. I don't know if anybody noticed that. Like, I know some people have kind of dark spots here and there. And listen, you know, you never know what's happening, but I don't recall ever seeing that dark spot on the bridge of his nose. So it kind of looked like he already had an issue going on there, and that thing opened up like somebody uh that thing opened up like somebody like punched a hole in his nose with like an X. It's crazy. I'll show a picture later. I have pictures, and they're crazy. So, but Khalil did a good job either way, and he's a fucking warrior. And any shit that anybody's talked about him, I think should just shut the fuck up at this point, because he did a damn good job. So anyway, we'll get into that later. But like I was saying, my parlays, I don't pick every fight wrong. It's just that the parlay itself gets busted because something goes wrong. At least one of the fights. Why do you look like Oscar De La Hoya? All right. I don't think that's a thing, but Von Devin in the chat says, "Why do I look like Oscar De La Hoya?" I mean, if you're trying to take a dig at me because of the things De La Hoya gets into, good on you. I don't look like him though. I've gotten Tai Tuivasa before, but I've never gotten Oscar De La Hoya, so that's kind of funny. That's a new one. But yeah, so I mean, like, my parlays just suck. I tried to do less. I didn't do a whole card parlay like I normally would. I actually broke it up a little bit, and it still didn't work. So I don't know. But there was some bad judging going on and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about too, because as much as people want to say the judging wasn't bad in some of these cases, it definitely was. So, and the other thing, just to address the watch party again, and I shouldn't even bring any attention to it. Froze? What? Are you saying I froze, Infinity, or are you saying something else? Because everything looks good on my end. So, anyway, he'll answer me in a second. Delay. But so as far as the watch party goes, speaking of technical difficulties, the watch party, it's just, this is the thing. I like to have the guys from the Technically Unsound podcast on. They like to watch the fights too. So, and you know, we podcast together quite a bit, so I like to have them on. But here's the thing, we're all in different areas, like of either just different, coming from different states, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So that causes an issue because that takes up a lot of bandwidth, and then, you know, I'm also like sharing a screen with them so they could see the fights, and you know, it causes a lot of issues. So if things aren't completely on par and up to, you know, standards like they should be, then I have issues, and the audio and video doesn't sync up and stuff like that. So it sucks. And then everything goes to shit. So basically, it's pointless. So from now on, until I get something figured out and I can have a lot of time to work on it and really nail it down, and until I feel super confident about it, I'm only gonna have watch parties when I know I can have people in studio, so that I don't have to deal with all that outside stuff, because it just makes it difficult. When I do it in studio, everything's fine. So it's just the different connections, and maybe maybe I don't think it's an internet thing. It might be a hardware issue with my laptop that I just need to sort through. Um, Infinity said it was his internet, so that's good. My wife texted me and said I didn't freeze up, so I was like, "Damn, I'm talking about technical issues and then I'm having some. That sucks. That would have really sucked." But that's not the case, so no problem, Infinity. Thanks for the heads up either way. But yeah, so I mean, watch parties will come back in a little bit. I'm not gonna have one. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. Depends on what I'm doing for the next pay-per-view as to whether I have one, because it's happening during the day. If I'm not doing anything else, I'll just sit here and do it by myself, even if I have to. I'm sure I might be able to get somebody to jump on, but I'm not sure. I'll make up my mind. Either way, just keep a lookout. You know, follow my social media, like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. That'll tell you when I'm going live in case you don't hear from me. And I decide to pop up. Sometimes we do that too. We'll pop up out of nowhere. That's our thing. We're always talking about doing pop-up podcasts, but we don't always get into it. So sometimes we do, though. So if I do that, you'll get notified if you hit that bell. So anyway, before I move on into all of the content for the day, talk about my sponsor, Noctane smelling salts. Gotta love the smelling salts. I definitely use these a lot. There's their logo and the QR code. Follow that QR code. It'll take you to their website. Website is really informative, really eye-catching. A lot of cool stuff there. Check it out. You can learn all about the smelling salts, what they do, what they're good for. They have a cap system for strength. So white's the least potent, black is the mid-range, and red is the most potent. And that's what I have here is red, because I've been using smelling salts for a while and I like it strong. So take a good little whiff of it. Keeps you alert, keeps you awake, you know, gives you a nice little adrenaline rush. And they wear off after a little while, but if you take a real deep hit of it and you keep them stored the way that they're supposed to, and keep the cap off, or keep the cap on as much as possible, then they'll last you quite a while. I do use them a lot though, so mine probably get used up faster than other people's might. But power lifters use them for that quick adrenaline rush before they do some lifting. Other people use them for various different reasons. I use them because I use them before the show just so I could be alert and awake. And I also use them when I'm driving out of town for work. Keeps me awake on the road when I'm feeling kind of tired, you know, heavy eyes and stuff. And I'm like, hit this up real quick, and wakes me up real fast. So follow that QR code. Why'd I point over there? It's over there. Follow that QR code. Check out their website. Go buy some. It'd be much appreciated. Support the sponsor. They support us. So, and if you go on their homepage of their website, all the way at the bottom, it says proudly sponsors Going Around the podcast. So thanks again, Noctane, for that sponsorship. I appreciate it. And don't forget to check it out. So that's a wrap for the intro and my shortcomings of technical things. Let's move into UFC 307, because I'm excited to talk about this event and what happened last Saturday. Here we go. So we had Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree for the light heavyweight championship, and then we had a second belt on the line with Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. And that fight, oh man, that's where some of that bad judging came in. I feel like, that's my opinion, but a lot of people didn't feel that way. A lot of people felt like it just came down to one round, and after kind of watching the highlights over a little bit, I rewatched the first round just because a lot of people said the first round was really what made it, made it be the outcome that it was. So the first round was the way to judge it, because the rest of the rounds were pretty apparent. It was 2-2, and Juliana came out with the win. So, well, obviously I'll dive a little deeper into that here when I get to that fight of the card. I always like to start at the bottom with the prelims, take a look at what happened throughout the fight card, and there was some stuff that happened pretty early on, so that's definitely going to be the way I go with this one. But overall, I feel like UFC 307 was a pretty decent card, better than it might have actually been better than 306, because 306 had a lot of decisions, and I think that 306 felt either very disappointing or entertaining, all because of the venue and the surroundings and the atmosphere, being that it was in the Sphere in Vegas. That was one of those events that it was a very, very long event, and it didn't make it any better that a lot of those fights went to decision. So I mean, it's one of those things. If that was an event that happened anywhere else without the Sphere being involved and all the extra stuff that happened, I think a lot of people would have been disappointed in that card. So it didn't age well. I felt like it was good in the moment. I had fun watching it and doing the watch party, but after the fact, it was kind of like, yeah, man, it was a little bit disappointing. So this one, some people were disappointed, but I thought it was a good card, and I still think it was. So let's talk about what actually took place at the card, with starting at the bottom. I mean, we had some old school guys fighting to start the card, and it was actually a great way to start the card with Court McGee versus Tim Means. That was 170, the welterweight division, and like I said, kind of old school guys, because they've both been around for quite a while. I mean, their records are 22-13 for McGee and 33-17-1 for Tim Means. That's a lot of fucking fights. So they've been around for a while, and Court McGee has one of those impressive kind of backstories, that a lot of hardships in his life. He was addicted to drugs and OD'd at one point in time and actually died, and they revived him. So a lot of crazy stuff in his part. And then Tim Means is just one of those guys that has been around for a long time and is a good fighter, but gets himself in a lot of trouble in the cage. So you never know. He's either going to come out and knock somebody out or just get completely annihilated, which is unfortunate, because I feel like he's a pretty good fighter, just can't seem to put it together enough to, get a lot of wins under his belt and go on a big streak to become a contender. So that one ended submission by neck crank. Court McGee got the win over Tim Means in that one, and that was the first fight of the night. So that's a good way to start, especially when you want to get people in, right? You want to start the card with some good fighters, and those are notable names, people that a lot of hardcore fans will recognize. Maybe not the casuals, but the hardcore fans definitely recognize that. So, but then we moved into Tisha Pennington versus Carla Esparza, and Carla Esparza went into this fight right away. Before fight week or anything, as soon as this was announced, it was announced that this would be her last fight. She was going to retire. She's coming off of, having her first child. She's married. She got married after she won the belt the second time, and then lost the belt right away after that. Got pregnant, and now she came back and fighting for the last time in the UFC. She retired after this fight, and this was one of the ones that I thought the judges got wrong, because it went to decision, which a lot of the women's fights do. That's what happens. Tisha Torres is what she used to be known as, but she's Tisha Pennington now. She's actually married to Raquel Pennington, who was the women's bantamweight champion going into this fight card. So that, you know, with that in mind, having her as a constant, you know, her wife's a champ. She's been in the UFC for quite a while. They came up together in the Ultimate Fighter for the first women's, did I say bantamweight before? Yeah, it is bantamweight. What am I talking about? I'm sorry, Tisha and Carla came up together in the Ultimate Fighter. Actually, Raquel was there too, I think. Anyway, who cares? It was a while back. The first women's champ was crowned in that Ultimate Fighter, and Carla was that one. So, but in this fight, she got the loss. Unfortunately, she was not able to retire on top with a win, but she had an impressive performance for the most part. You know, her and Tisha went back and forth quite a bit. You know, Carla got her down to the ground. That's where she's known with her wrestling, grappling, and stuff. But I felt like Carla did enough to win. It was a pretty close fight. Maybe it wasn't so much a robbery, but I really feel like she could have had that win if the judges would have gone, you know, her way. But it didn't work out that way. So it's unfortunate, being that that was her final fight in the UFC. But at least she didn't get knocked out. She didn't get beat up. You know, barely had a scratch on her face. But she did retire at the end of this. And she had a nice, you know, kind of send off from the UFC. They put together a cool video package and stuff like that. And I haven't really been a Carla Esparza fan for the most part. I didn't really like I didn't really like her, the way her demeanor and the way she carried herself during the Ultimate Fighter. And being that she beat Rose Namajunas, who was my favorite on the Ultimate Fighter, has been one of my favorite female fighters since I've watched her fight. But she did beat Rose for the first title of the for the women's strawweight division. And so I was kind of upset with that one. Plus, like I said, I didn't really like the way she acted, her demeanor, the way she carries herself. But she was a pretty good fighter throughout. She lost her belt pretty quickly after winning that first time. But you know, either way, she's a two-time champ, because then she came back, beat Rose Namajunas again in a really bad fight. It was a really bad fight from both of them. It was boring. It was uneventful. They barely even threw any punches. They barely did anything. It was kind of crazy how bad it was. And a lot of people forgot that fight, but remember it when they think about it, and remember that they want to forget it again because it was that bad. But anyway, in the end, Carla Esparza retires. So thanks for the good fights, Carla. Good luck with your family and everything else on the way out. And I don't know, we might not ever really see her much, because it doesn't seem like she has too much interest in sticking around in the, you know, around MMA and stuff like that. But who knows? She's got her child now. She's married, and you know, she had her kid in there with her, and she put the gloves on the ground and retired. So it was a cool way to go out, except for the fact that she lost. But again, at least she didn't get knocked out or beat up real bad. So Carla retires. That's it for her, and Tisha Pennington gets the win. Moves on. Let's see who else. Ryan Spann versus Ovince St. Preux, which is I didn't even realize Ryan Spann gets a performance of the night with a submission by guillotine choke over Ovince St. Preux, another guy who's no longer in the UFC. He was fighting the last fight of his contract for the UFC on Saturday, and unfortunately for him, he gets finished in the first round. A minute 35 in, Ryan Spann knocked him down with a couple punches, or a kick maybe, I think, but winds up getting him in a guillotine, submits him, and ends Ovince St. Preux ends his career in the UFC, because he's an older guy now. He hasn't really been in contention for quite a while, and I highly doubt he's gonna make his way back to the UFC, unfortunately for him. But you know, that's kind of how it goes, especially when they get a little older. So that was your other finish in the prelims. We had Cesar Almeida versus Ihor Pretoria, which I didn't get any pics of this, but this is one of those things where I I kind of it didn't really have to. This was somewhat of a boring fight. It was a decision win for Cesar Almeida, but this was what I was talking about with the refs. This ref, horrible ref, man. He just continuously was inserting himself in the fight. There was illegal strikes left and right, groin kicks, eye pokes happening by Almeida, Ihor Pretoria. It was so just frustrating, man, watching him continuously stopping and asking the ref to stop things because he was getting poked in the eye. Almeida kept sticking his hand out like this with his fingers open, poking Ihor in the face or in the eyes multiple times, kicked him in the groin a couple times. It was crazy, and this ref just got basically run out as soon as this fight was over, and he wasn't seen again that night, and he probably won't be again because he was horrible. But Cesar Almeida gets that unanimous decision there. Alex Hernandez versus Austin Hubbard, split decision win for Hernandez in that one. And then Yasmin Lucindo versus Marina Rodriguez, split decision there for Lucindo as the winner in the women's strawweight division. And that brings us to Joaquin Buckley versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Here we go. Rick Allen back in the chat talking about finding my chin. This fucking guy. At least it's good for a laugh every time. Cheers, Rick. Good luck. Joaquin Buckley, though, gets a win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Dude, Stephen Thompson was looking pretty good in this fight. He was definitely in it. He wasn't getting his ass beat throughout the fight or nothing like that. It just came down to that last round. They were in the third round, 2 minutes and 17 seconds in, and Buckley catches him with a couple punches, and I mean, just lands some huge punches on Stephen Thompson. Chick fighting women's MMA should be banned, in my opinion. No need for it. Here we fucking go. Okay, that's your opinion. No problem. You can have your opinion. That would mean you could never fight, though. So, but yeah, unfortunately for Stephen Thompson, he gets knocked out by Joaquin Buckley with this big right hand. And yeah, Buckley looked pretty impressive with that finish. It's just, yeah, I feel like he might have been able to do that earlier in the fight, or, I mean, who knows? Because I didn't say I loved it, man. I just respect these women for being able to get in there and fight. They may not always be the most exciting fights, but there's a lot of women's fighters that I do like. So, and listen, I have daughters. I respect them. If they wanted to get in and fighting, I'd be okay with it. It's like, it's all good, man. I've known girls in the past that are fighters. It's just, it is what it is. It doesn't, I don't know why you think you're better and that you have the right opinion, but you don't. That's why Dana White always said there wasn't going to be women fighting in the UFC, and look what happened. Ronda Rousey changed his mind. So I don't know that that's the best example, but she's definitely the one that got it going in the UFC. So it's been around for years now. So I think the opinion of you saying that they don't belong in fighting, that's old and outdated, bro. You need to let it go. Speaking of women's fighting, though, after Stephen Wonderboy Thompson gets knocked out by Joaquin Buckley in the third round by a right hook, which was unfortunate for him, we move on to another women's fight. Kayla Harrison versus Caitlin Vieira. I'm not better, but it's simply not entertaining to watch, and women have been declining in terms of skills in fun fights. All right, don't watch them. I mean, what are you gonna do? The UFC is not gonna listen to you. I understand your opinion. That's a fair point. I do feel like they don't have any star power anymore for women, especially after Nunez leaving. I will say Juliana Pena is atrocious, and there's an organization for them, Invicta, not the UFC. Yeah, well, now that's a feeder league. I'm telling you, nothing any of us say are gonna get rid of the women in the UFC. That's up to Dana White and people higher than him. So I understand what you're saying, but it's just not a thing. That's why I say it's an outdated opinion at this point. We could talk about how maybe their fights aren't the best anymore, and that there's no star power there, but I would also argue that the UFC's lack of star power in general is a big problem. And when you don't have any big stars, even yeah, good point, Infinity, thank you. They got women in bare knuckle too, and those bitches will knock you the fuck out and cut your ass up. Those are exciting fights, I promise you that. So go check out bare knuckle fighting, because those are definitely exciting fights. And they're, because it's bare knuckle, it's not that difficult to be exciting, because you see cuts and blood quickly in those fights. But yeah, they exist there, and that's some of the toughest fighting you can see. So yeah, that's a good point. Good, thanks, Infinity. But yeah, I mean, the UFC lacking star power in general, you're definitely if you don't have a big star in the men's divisions, the women's divisions are gonna lack big time, because if you can't even find the stars in the men's division, you're definitely not gonna have them in the women's. The big exciting fights, they're just in a lull right now. So let's hope that it turns around. Let's hope that somebody, you know, arises. Karate Hottie would sub your ass. She could take your neck so easy because you are big and slow. All right. Okay. What about you? Because I'm sure she would take your ass out too. But Kayla Harrison would definitely fucking throw your ass around like a rag doll, because she's a high-level judo player, and that's what she does. But she was not that impressive in this fight, unfortunately. Against Ketlin Vieira, she did catch her with some good shots. She did get a throw in there, but definitely wasn't what we expect. Men versus women fights could make things more interesting. They should try that, maybe. No. You sound like a guy that wants to have men who have become women fight other women. Go look all that up. You'll find out why you're wrong. And I mean, if you're into that, that's cool. You can find your fix somewhere, but it's not going to be in the UFC. So this is a mainstream high-level organization, the biggest actually. So yeah, entertaining that stuff is not going to happen. But I mean, I guess it's fun to talk about. I just don't. I know that there's girls out there that are willing to put themselves against a man, but there's obvious differences as to why that doesn't happen. That's why there's weight classes. That's why there's, you know, a different section of the league for the women. But I mean, it is what it is. There's definitely videos all over YouTube and other places that you can find. Infinity. There's definitely places you can find those kind of fights coming out of Russia and stuff like that. You'll definitely find fights like that. There was one where there was some big gigantic dude fighting two women, and yeah, it's pretty easy to know what happened there. But anyway, Kayla Harrison unfortunately didn't have the most impressive performance, especially when she's vying for that title. She thinks that she should, you know, basically she's at the level where she should be higher up and ready for a title fight. And I mean, that could be argued because, like I said, there's no star power. She is one of the biggest stars in the UFC because of her background in the PFL and everything else that she's done. This was only her second fight in the UFC, but now she's 2-0 with the win over Ketlin Vieira. It was by unanimous decision, but she did get busted up a little. Ketlin caught her a couple times. There was no good pictures of it, but she threw a nice elbow, an inside elbow, and caught Kayla in the forehead there. You see above her eyebrow with that mouse, bloodied her up a little bit, and then she also busted her nose open some. So you know, Kayla catches some damage for the first time. I don't think we've ever really seen her damaged that way. Even in her one loss in the PFL, it was a unanimous decision loss, and she just looked not like herself, but she didn't really get beat up. So this is one of the first times we've seen her with some true damage. But like I said, she still got her throws in. She was still able to come out with the win and come out on top for this event. So moving away which will probably make Rick Allen happy. Moving away from the women for now, we have the other unfortunate thing that happened. I mean, I was looking forward to this fight, Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. But I mentioned this last week. Here's the thing. Kevin Holland is one of those guys. You don't know how he's going to come in there. He could be coming in there to wreck shit, or he could be coming in there not wanting to be there, and something happens and he gets out quickly. And I'm not saying he's looking for a way out, because this was just a kind of a freak thing, but you could tell right away when he walked in there that he's not, he wasn't in it that night, and he didn't look like he was ready to just blow shit up in there. And yeah, and then the unfortunate thing that happened during a scramble, he kind of over exerted himself in a certain, position, and he got some damage to his ribs. So something separated or something like that, but he had an issue with his ribs, said it was hard to breathe. He never really said that he couldn't fight anymore, but he was holding his ribs like the way he is in this picture the whole time in his corner after the first round, and just was never able to come back out. It happened at the very end of the first round, and it's just unfortunate that it happened that way, because that could have been a really good fight, but he hurt his ribs and was not able to come back and fight. So he was in good spirits, and that's kind of another thing. It's like he wasn't too down on himself. I think he kind of realized it was just a freak thing that happened, but like I said, he didn't look good coming in. He just didn't look like he was wanting to be there. He's one of those guys that shows it right away. He doesn't have a good poker face. So it was kind of destined to be not a good night for him. So I guess it could have been worse. An injury is unfortunate, and that's a shitty kind of injury, because you feel it no matter what. I've had a cracked rib before. It's not fun, and it affects you no matter what you do, and it takes forever to heal. So especially when you're in the fight game, though, you got to wait for that to fully heal. Otherwise, you're just going to cause more damage. So hopefully he heals up quickly and gets past that, comes back and has a good fight on his way back. So moving on to Mario Bautista versus Jose Aldo. And once again, judging in this one was a factor. And I only say that because, in my opinion, when I'm watching the fights, right, I kind of watch in the way that I kind of try to think about what happens at the end of the round, how the rounds played out. They have their ways of scoring fights, and you try to keep that in mind when you're thinking about who might have won what round. But with this one, I felt like it was very close again, just like the Pennington and Esparza fight. But I thought at the end of it that Jose Aldo squeaked it out. But especially because Bautista did a lot of holding against the cage. And while there was a lot of striking involved, and Bautista got some hits in on Aldo, who's a legend, by the way, already a Hall of Famer, came out of retirement. This is his second fight back. But he won his first one, comes back to fight Mario Bautista, and winds up losing by split decision. So you could tell it was a close fight. But unfortunately, his leg kicks aren't there. That's what he's known for. He's got some badass leg kicks. He can definitely beat the shit out of some legs. He's done it in the past, but for some reason he just doesn't use those. He doesn't utilize those leg kicks anymore. And it's an obvious thing. A lot of people know at this point that those leg kicks aren't there anymore, so no one's worried about them like they used to be. So I think that's part of his downfall, and part of why he just can't seem to put those impressive wins together anymore. And even though he's still winning fights like he did in his last one, I feel like this is what cost him this fight. If he would have kept on those leg kicks, beat up those legs a little more, wore out Bautista a little more, he might not have been able to hold him against the cage like he was. But that's the shit part, and that's what a lot of people had a problem with, was the way Bautista fought that fight. He kept backing Aldo into the cage and basically just holding him there. And he did make a statement saying, that it's not his fault that Aldo couldn't get away from the cage, couldn't get out of being held there, which I understand. That's part of the game. If you don't have any counter wrestling or grappling, then you're going to get stuck in a position you don't want to be in. and it makes for a boring fight. But if the guy's looking for a win over a big name like Jose Aldo, and he knows he can win that way, I guess good on him. It's strategic, it's tactical, but it's not fun, and it doesn't make you a fan favorite or a favorite with the higher ups, especially Dana White. So that was the problem with that fight. You know, Aldo still got some in, and like I said, I felt like he fought a decent fight when he was able to do some exchange and you know, really actually fight. But Bautista was relentless with the grappling, relentless with the pressure against the cage, and in the end he winds up getting the big win over Jose Aldo. It might not catapult him into any better rankings or better positions because of the way that he won, but he still gets the win, and I believe that puts him at, let me see, how many fights in a row is that now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That puts him at 7 in a row. So that is saying something. He does have a few decisions in there though, so not being an exciting fighter and being on a streak like that doesn't really do a whole lot for you, because even guys like Tony Ferguson, Leon Edwards took forever with long win streaks and still didn't get a title shot right away. So when you're in a division where there's other people that are fighting exciting fights, that's gonna hold you back. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So Aldo did bloody up Bautista a bit, so a lot of the damage is why I was thinking as well, you know, you show that damage and you get the blood flowing, and a lot of times that sways the judges, but in this case it didn't. So unfortunately for Aldo, he gets the loss there by split decision over Mario Bautista, and that brings us to the co-main event. Back to the women, Rick. If you're still here, you might want to, you know, close your ears. But we get to Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington, and yeah, I once again, judges, I just don't feel like they got it right in this one. But I've heard all the arguments for why everyone thinks that Pena probably won, but still, I don't like Juliana Pena much. But it's not like Raquel Pennington is like my favorite fighter or anything like that. It's just, I felt like in this one she definitely did enough, and I feel like she made Pena she humbled Pena a little bit, even though Pena doesn't say she is, but she definitely put the work in on her, and I feel like she got the best of her, and I feel like she could have won that just as easily as Pena won it. So it was a split decision, so it was a close fight, but Raquel Pennington, you know, they both showed damage, so I can't really say that one had more damage than the other, but I feel like with Raquel having the belt and Pena not being super impressive, I feel like this was too close to just give it to Pena. I mean, if you break it down completely, I guess you can find a way for both of them to have won. But again, in the moment, and when I rewatched that first round, I was just like, that first round is like, if that's a deciding round, it's still a toss-up as to who the fuck won. Because I don't think Pena was very impressive in that first round. I don't think either of them were. And I just don't know where you could see that being 100% for Pena. But I guess if it's close enough, that's why I got, you know, one judge thought it was enough for Pena to win. So, I mean, it sucked. I would have rather have seen Raquel Pennington, you know, hold on to that title and give him a rematch because it was so close. I still feel like maybe they should have a rematch, especially because the person that was in line that everyone was thinking, okay, this is the perfect card. You got Kayla Harrison at the bottom of this card, wanting to get a title shot as quickly as possible. There's heat between her and Juliana Pena. So with them talking shit to each other at the press conference, talking shit to each other in the media and on social media and stuff like that, this was the perfect setup. Pena did her part and won the title, but you know, Kayla Harrison kind of didn't do her part, and that's unfortunate because if she would have won in dramatic fashion and then Pena wins this title, it would have been a no-brainer to match them up. And then Pena at the end of the fucking fight decides to call out a fucking retired fighter. 25 media scores gave the fight to Pennington out of 26, and that person said draw. Yeah, there you go. So you saw a stat that I didn't see. I heard something about the fact that most of the, I guess I didn't see it in depth like that, but I did see real eyes. That's a tongue twister name there in the chat, but appreciate that stat pointed out because yeah, I did hear that most of the media members gave that to Pennington as well. And I just didn't know it was that crazy. 25 out of the 26 gave it to Pennington, and that 26 person said it was a draw. That's crazy. So the judges saw it differently though. But it's a testament to the way the night went with the other few fights that were fucked up my parlay for one. And I'm not only mad because of that, I'm mad because I really thought the win should have gone to the other person in Aldo versus Batista and Esparza versus Pennington. And then here with Pena winning this, I didn't think she did enough to say she's the new champ. I feel like in this case where I know you got to beat the champ to be the champ, a lot of people hate that saying and that it's not really a thing. I do feel like if you're not really being impressive in your win, then I don't know that you should be able to take the belt that way. So it sucks, man. It really does, because these are the types of fights that turn people off for the women's fights. Like Rick Allen hates it. It doesn't help the case. Nobody really gives a shit what he thinks, but that's the reason why some people like him think that way. And then you get fights like this, and it's like, you know, most people saw it for Pennington, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? But Pennington is that type of fighter, and it's unfortunate because she really does drop fights in stupid ways. And I feel like this was one where if she would have just capitalized in that last round and really done a little bit of extra, she might have been able, or come out a little faster, since that first round seems to be the deciding one for everybody. I feel like she just missed an opportunity to keep her belt and continue bringing on the challengers, and instead she turns around and loses it by a very small margin and a very unfortunate way, because again, a lot of people did not think, I mean, she even knocked down Pena at one point in time. I don't believe Pena knocked down Pennington at all. So that's another thing. It's like, what are we doing? How did nobody score that better? Maybe this was just one of the rounds, but I mean, I don't expect a 10-8 because she knocked her down, because it's not boxing. But it's like Pena didn't do anything of that sort. So she might have gotten some strikes in on her and controlled her with some of that wrestling and grappling, but I just don't feel like it was nearly impressive enough to turn that belt around and give it to her back to her. But now she's a two-time world champ, and that's just not something you can take away, regardless of what your opinion is. So even with the takedown, they still went back and forth. You would think with all these pictures, you would think that this was a super exciting fight. It kept me interested, but it wasn't like the best fight of all time. And I do feel like a lot more could have been done by both of them to make it a bit more of a obvious winner, and that just didn't happen. I mean, look at this big punch by Pena. That's just a great picture. I mean, that's good timing. But those make for the best pictures when you get punches like that make someone's face look deformed. And then, Pena being on top while on the ground, Pennington should not have allowed her to get her there. That's one of the factors that's one way that Pena wins all the time. So your takedown defense and wrestling defense needs to be on point. And for Pennington this night, it wasn't. And she got lucky. She could have been submitted here. Pena had her back in a body triangle, but she survived and winds up losing anyway. Juliana Pena wins by split decision, gets her title back, and then she proceeds to call out Amanda Nunes, who's retired and said she was done with fighting. But she did make an Instagram tagging Dana White, and she was dancing to some Brazilian song. I'm not really sure what she said. I didn't really catch the whole thing, but of course there's speculation now that she's going to come back. Maybe because she wants, her and Pena are 1-1. Pena beat her the first time, and then Nunes came back and beat her the second fight. So they are 1-1. Maybe she wants to come back and be like, let me shut this girl up again. Let Kayla get one more big win under her belt, and after I beat Pena, she could fight Kayla Harrison because they're former teammates. There's a little bit of heat there, and a lot of people want to see that fight. So that's something that could get put together. That's something to look forward to in the future if Nunes decides to come back, which I wouldn't be opposed to seeing. I think that she could hang. She's had plenty of time to recover from all of her injuries. She said that's part of the reason why she was retiring. She had a lot of injuries that she basically never had time to recover from. So it was a lot of injuries. So maybe she's had enough time now, and she sees what's happening in her division with her belt, and she wants to, bring some order back in and bring some exciting fights. So hopefully that's what we get, because I don't see much else on the horizon that could be very exciting. Unfortunately, I have to make someone in the chat feel a little better about their opinion on that one, but it is the truth. So moving on to the main event, we have the crazy good way to end the night, by the way, Khalil Roundtree versus Alex Pereira. And this was an exciting fight because Khalil Roundtree came out looking like he was ready to be a champ, and looking like he should have looked in this fight, because that's what he needed to do. Jump on Alex Pereira quickly, not be intimidated, and not lose the fight before the bell even rings. So, and he definitely did a good job at that, because I feel like he got, with the exception of Izzy knocking out Pereira like he did when he beat him again for the belt, no one has really gotten hands on Pereira like Khalil has. And a lot of people doubted Khalil and counted him out, saying there was no way in hell he had a chance in this fight. And that's because a lot of people also didn't think that he deserved the title fight, because Magomed Ankalaev is really the next one in line. Khalil Roundtree was ranked 8th, and he's coming to fight the champ when there's other people that are clearly in line and ready to go. But Ankalaev already had a fight scheduled. Pereira saved this card pretty much, like he has before, like he did with 300. And it's just one of those things. He's an active fighter, and he's ready to go, whether he's got injuries that are nagging him or not. And that's what he did again here. So with Ankalaev already having a fight set up, which, by the way, the UFC in the past has easily said, fuck that fight, we got a real fight here, so let's put this one on. And for some reason they didn't do that. And of course there's the rumors that they're protecting Pereira. He's the golden child right now, so they're not going to give him a wrestler who everyone thinks can beat him because he doesn't wrestle much. But he has wrestled a little bit here and there in some of his fights, and he's been successful with it, and he hasn't been beaten with wrestling yet, even though he hasn't really had a true wrestler, grappler type opponent yet. But either way, he's defended, he's taken people down, so it's not impossible. But he's definitely more of a striker, stand-up fighter, and whether or not they're protecting him, I don't know. But Khalil Roundtree came in there to do what he wanted to do, and that was win the title. And he had full intention of doing that, especially with the way he started off, man. He got in some very good strikes on Pereira, making him look like he's human when usually he looks superhuman and like a goddamn demon. But he's just so stoic and stone-faced. That's why he has the stone-faced little character that they always show with him. But Khalil was able to break through that a little bit and show that he is human. And some people were saying they gave other people a blueprint on how to beat him, which I don't know how, with that fight against Izzy, that wasn't already done. Maybe everyone just looked at that as a mistake, but Izzy definitely put his lights out. No one else has been able to do that or even come close to it. But Khalil may not have knocked him down, but he definitely got some good hits in on him. But then Pereira starts tearing him apart. It went to the fourth round. 4 minutes and 32 seconds into the fourth round actually is when the stoppage happened. Alex Pereira did win by TKO. But on his way to doing that, he busted open Khalil. Like I said in the beginning, if you weren't here, I was talking about the fact that Khalil Roundtree had this dark spot, and it looked like a little X on the bridge of his nose already coming into the fight. And that's not something I remembered seeing on him before. So he already had, maybe it'd been cut before, or something was irritated, an infection of some, I don't know. Something was going on with his nose though, and you'll see in a picture here coming up that that thing got busted wide open. On top of the big cut in his eye, he got a lot of damage. He was bleeding quite a bit, as you can see here by his shorts. You can see the blood on his face already. Pereira just put in work and definitely was able to bust him open multiple times. So Khalil was a warrior though, sticking in there, man. I couldn't believe the fact that he didn't go out sooner than he did. Look at these big punches. Not a lot of people can take these punches from Pereira. Look at the blood coming out of his face. That is another well-timed photo. That's what I like about collecting these and showing them, because sometimes you just get some crazy shit like this. And it makes it easier to see something along with what I'm talking about. So, but yeah, you can see the blood there. Look at the blood on both of their hands in this picture with that big punch to the temple by Pereira. And he really just started putting in work in that fourth round, breaking him down and doing everything that he normally does. The knees, the hooks. The cut was from training camp, but Alex broke his nose bad. Yeah, okay. So he did have that cut from training camp. Okay. That makes sense. I noticed it right away. I hadn't seen anything about it. So I didn't think it was a big deal, but I just kept, every time they showed him, I was like, man, that doesn't look good. That looks like something that can be opened up real quick. And we saw that. But here's a big knee from Pereira, doing everything he does to finish people. And really, this was the kicker when he was able to get these body shots in on Khalil at the end. Couple body shots, and then he snuck in a big uppercut. Here's another one of those body shots, and this looked like the end right here. He started folding, and then Pereira sneaks in this uppercut. Look at the blood coming off his fist. Yeah, and that was the finisher right there. And then you get that big standing over. Pereira likes to do that. I don't even know that he notices he does that, but when he does, it's just super intimidating. That's just the kind of guy he is. He looks intimidating, and then he does things like this. It's like, man, it's a hell of a win. And Khalil just trying to catch his breath through the blood. I'm sure, like Real Eyes said, broke his nose bad, and that is probably making it hard for him to breathe here. He's got his mouth open, his eyes closed, and blood just pouring from everywhere. But Alex Pereira gets the third title defense of the year for him, and his third championship fight this year. And there's Khalil walking away. He looks like he's fine there, but his face is just completely ripped up. Look at this picture. Just his eyes, his eyebrows just falling into his eye. His nose is fucked up. Blood everywhere. It's crazy, man. And then a close-up of the damage. Look at that big cut on the eye. And there's that X on the nose. When he was talking to Rogan on the mic, it was just disgusting blood clot nastiness coming out of his nose. Joe was like, whoa, he got some shit going on. It was bad, but Khalil's a warrior, man. He took a lot of damage, and I really, really, really think this is gonna change him. You just can't be the same person coming out of something like this. With Irene Aldana, that big crazy cut that's a whole different thing. That's something that's insane. It looks crazy, and she definitely took damage that was something that happened because of the striking. But when you get somebody punching as hard as Pereira does, especially when the ref comes out and says it's like an otherworldly thing listening to his punches land on Khalil, like, fuck, it's insane. So, you know, just I listened to Khalil talking to his gym, the guys, his teammates and stuff in his gym. He had that surgery for a deviated septum. When they pack your nostrils full of gauze, it's misery, no fun. Yeah, that's what he said on Instagram. He said that was the worst pain that you could think of. So yeah, his nose was fucked. And I mean, he was in interviews with this big, gigantic, like bandage on his face. His voice sounded all crazy with of course, the nose, you know. I don't even know why he's going on podcasts and talking. But again, he's a warrior, man. And I have more respect for him now than I did before. I respected his fight skills and everything before. But coming out of this, it's like, it's crazy. Just listening to him talk and stuff, you could tell that one changed him a little bit. So Alex Pereira, though, sets a record, 176 days, which is the UFC record for the shortest time span for 3 title defenses previously held by Ronda Rousey. So Pereira's out here making history, breaking records. But it sounds like he went into the fight with a lot of injuries himself. He went into the UFC 300 with a broken toe, fucked it up more during the fight. He came into this one with, I don't know, I heard something about torn cartilage, some other kind of injuries. I think a shoulder problem or something. Either way, he's a badass. He came in, he saved this event. They were talking about the fact that it was possible he might have to drop out. And the UFC was like, well, we'll just have to make the women the main event. That would have been a goddamn disaster. And not because it's the women, it's just because, you know, Pereira, it's hard to match his star power right now. He's about the only guy you can say is an actual star in the UFC right now, that has a big following, and in anticipation for his fights. Of course, Sugar Sean's still a star, even though he lost. But, you know, some of that luster goes away once you lose the title like that. But they just don't have any gigantic stars. Izzy's been out, and he's a big star. It's like Conor just can't seem to find his way back. And they don't have him for much longer anyway. So Pereira's got to rest up a little bit, maybe wait till next year to fight again, because he's already fought 3 times this year, and 2 of those times having lots of injuries. So we'll see what's up next for him. But for now, he retains the title, breaks that record, and has a great fight with Khalil Roundtree. So let's move on to the only combat sports news I got for you this week. Dana White's Contender Series happening Tuesday nights. This was week 9. Once again, every Tuesday, it's a little bit earlier in the night. Topuria could be that guy. Oh, to be a star? I don't know, man. I listened to him talking to Max Holloway in an interview today. I just don't know that he has that appeal. His accent is so thick, which is whatever, you know, because a lot of guys with accents and broken English have become stars. Pereira doesn't even speak English, but I don't think it's about the talking. He is a little cringe when he with the way he tries to shit talk. I think he needs to, you know, work on that a little bit, because it's hard to hang. I mean, Max Holloway's not even a shit talker, but Topuria just it's very elementary. So maybe he could be that guy if his skills back it up, but there you go. He just said he's so skilled. I was just about to comment on that. So his skills are there, but look at the strength of schedule. Like, he has not fought nearly the guys that Max Holloway has. And that doesn't always mean anything, but I just don't think he's truly been tested in the manner that Max Holloway has and other fighters in that division. So I feel like he has a lot of potential, but is he going to capitalize on that, or is he going to fall off like a lot of these guys do when they get to this upper echelon? You know, yeah, he's the champ right now. He beat Volkanovski though. And it's not that I disrespect Volk, but Volk, you could tell when a fighter's at the end of maybe not his career, but at the end of being on top. And Volk was there. whether he makes a resurgence and comes back and is able to do what he's done in the past, that who knows. But the wars he's been in and the damage he's taken, and for him to lose like that, I just feel like it was Volk's time to be done. Realize says agree, but he's 27. Yeah, that's true. That's what I mean. He's got the potential, and he definitely has time. He's not like Pereira, who needs to fight all these fights in a short period of time because he's 37, and he knows that once he's approaches that 40 and gets to that 40, that it's gonna be time, that he's not gonna be able to hang like he has in these past couple of years. But with Topuria, it's a fine line. I just don't see him as a gigantic star right now. Maybe he has potential to be one. I just think that his skills are gonna have to speak for him, and right now they are. But he hasn't fought anyone like Max Holloway, and he hasn't fought anyone in that echelon yet, I don't think. Volk, again, what I felt like was just falling off, and he caught him at the right time, which is fine. Capitalize on that shit, and he did, and he has the belt. So let's see what he does with it. That's basically where I stand with that one. But yeah, he has potential, so we'll see where it goes. Continuing though with the Contender Series, I'm not sure if anybody's into this. I like to cover it a little bit because, sometimes we get stars from here. Like, this is where you can find these guys and follow their careers as they get into the UFC. We've seen Sugar Sean do it. We've seen Jamal Hill become champions, become big contenders, become stars. Sugar Sean is a star, and he started here at Dana White's Contender Series. So probably helped that Snoop Dogg was commentating and he liked him so much and made a gigantic deal and went viral over his celebration for Sean. That probably helped a lot. Anyway, who knows who you'll find here. You might find your next champ, your next star. So that's why it's fun to watch. And I don't get to watch all these all the time. I go back and watch them later. I actually watched all of these as I was finishing my prep for this, because I had seen some highlights, so I wanted to just kind of get insight into how it led up to that. So I was watching them while I finished the prep, and that's kind of what I do with these. Get to watch them whenever I can. So Topuria has KO'd dozens of sparring partners from all over the world. Man, we talking about practice? He's talking about practice. I'm sorry. It was just there. I couldn't. Oh shit. Listen, I've heard a lot of people talk about knocking out sparring partners, but then they get under the bright lights and can't do it. So I just thought that was funny. You gotta quote Allen Iverson. It's just too perfect not to. But yeah, I get it, man. He's got the skills. I'm not denying that. I don't have full confidence that he's gonna manifest it all into being a gigantic star and a long-term champion, but we'll see. So let's see here. We had am I in the right one? Oh yeah. Okay, so Sean Gauchi versus Anthony Drillich, Islam Dulatev versus Vanatillo and Antunes, Camacho versus Pinto, Steele versus Blair, and Mazraf versus Vakhitov. And this Vakhitov guy, speaking of Alex Pereira, that's not normal. No, I get it, man. But the story, the gym stories and the gym wars have never been what made a person. I've just seen and heard a lot of it, but for them, it's a whole different story to carry it over to the cage. And again, he hasn't shown all of that in the UFC. Yeah, he's the champ. Yeah, he's been impressive, but it's not like this catastrophic, crazy fucking rise. You know what I mean? That's what makes me doubt it. I'm just saying, not that I have anybody has anything to prove anything to me, but for me, in my opinion, what I need from Ilia Topuria are those big, crazy wins that show and prove what his skills can manifest into and what he can do with the position he's in right now. So that's all. That's what it is for me. So I understand what you're saying with the knockouts in practice, and the weight of the gloves and everything else you want to talk about. It's not normal. I get that, but it doesn't always carry over. And sometimes you get in those wars in the gym and it gives you false sense of confidence. So that, again, this is my humble opinion. This is just what I think. So I know a few people that are Topuria fans and believe in him. It's not that I don't believe in him. I don't have full confidence that it's gonna turn out like that for him. But he is a star where he's from. So we'll see if it can carry over to the US and in the UFC. But yeah, let's get to these Contender Series fights. Obviously they fight for a UFC contract. So there's been times in the past where there's been lackluster performances and Dana has not given out any contracts. So you really have to show and prove while you're there and that you want it, and you got to put a show on. So I mean, that's a lot of pressure for some of these guys. So you know, if you knock out people in practice, you got to do it here too. And this is where it counts. So Sean Gauchi gets a unanimous decision win over Anthony Drillich. This was a decent back and forth fight. I was kind of surprised at the outcome of some of these fights, but I mean, Gauchi basically won this in the last round because it was pretty close leading up, and in the last round he turned it up a bit, got enough strikes to score the points and get that win. So he gets unanimous decision win there. Moving on to Islam Dulatov versus Venetilo and Antunes. It's fucking tough names, man. These guys come from all over the world, and it's hard as shit to pronounce some of their names. But this was in the welterweight division. This was actually a really exciting fight. These guys were going back and forth. Dulatov was just coming out fucking crazy with punches and bunches and fucking landing a lot. But Antunes was definitely in the fight and trying to put up a fight, and he not much defense, but he was definitely countering and landing strikes of his own. But Islam was just on another level. Big flurries that were hurting his opponent, and he winds up getting him back against the cage and landing this sneaky little kind of step in elbow. Looks like it's behind the head, but it really wasn't. It was to the side of his head, and gets the big KO there in front of Dana White. Had Dana out of his seat, so that was a good one for him. He definitely got a contract. Moving on to Mario Pinto versus Lucas Camacho. This one was pretty good as well. This one was a first round finish, as well as the last one was a first round finish too. So those are definitely pluses when you're in the Contender Series and trying to impress Dana White. But Pinto here with the big overhand right, a big left turning the head of Camacho, and then he gets him down to the ground, finishes him off after that left hook, finishes him on the ground with some ground and pound for the TKO win there. And then we move on to Cody Steele versus Chasen Blair. And I mean, this was a TKO by body shot in the second round. The first round was pretty good, back and forth. But Cody Steele got to the corner, and his corner was like, listen, he's not moving his head off that center line. Punches down the center, and you're gonna have success. And that was good, damn good coaching, because when they came out in the second round, you could see it right away that Blair was not moving his head. His footwork was going, but his head was staying right dead straight in the middle. And anytime Steele would throw anything down the middle, it was landing and landing flush. So he was able to take that advice and run with it. You could see here, straight left down the middle, catching Blair on the nose, and then he caught him with this big body shot to finish it off, and that was a TKO in the second round for Cody Steele, getting that contract as well. And then we get to the main event, Artem Vakitov versus Islam Masarov. But this guy Artem, he was actually the last guy to beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing. So the last guy to beat Alex in kickboxing making his debut in Dana White's Contender Series and getting a first round finish, 4 minutes and 23 seconds into the first round. And what's funny is Alex Pereira was actually there watching him and kind of cheering him on. So it was pretty cool to see that. Gave him big respect after the fight and stuff. So, you know, that's the kind of guy Alex Pereira is. Pretty cool to see. He's there watching the last guy to beat him in kickboxing and watching him get a big win. It's a nasty uppercut right here, and then finishes him off with the ground and pound. And yeah, Artem Vakitov with the win there in the first round. So here's your winners of the contract. 4 out of the 5. We got Vakitov, Steele, Pinto, and Dulatov. Gauchi's the only one that did not get the win. Like I said, the only decision on that card, and you know, nothing too impressive there. It was a decent fight, but the only fight not to get a contract. There's your contract winners for Dana White's Contender Series Week 9. If there's not a whole lot going on, I like to cover it, especially if there's some good fights in there. So, but that's it for Combat Sports News. Let's finish this thing off with a little preview of this weekend's fight card. UFC Vegas 98 happening in Las Vegas in the Apex Center. Back to the Apex after a while of not being there. Not surprised, motherfuckers. But I guess the next 2 events are going to be in the Apex. It is what it is. I guess they need a break from being on the road, but that's how it landed. So we got Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira, the #1 flyweight in the division, against #5. And yeah, I mean, this card, it is what it is. Nothing crazy going on this card, unfortunately. But I always say, some of these are sleeper cards, and sometimes you get really impressive and great fights coming out of cards like this. So you can't really count it out. But it is happening in the Apex, so not a big crowd. And we got no big names really in the prelims for the most part. Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha in the flyweight division to start it off. Dan Argueta versus Cody Haddon in the bantamweight division. Julia Pilastri versus Corey McKenna. Why did I might have screwed something up there, but that's okay. Junior Tafa versus Sean Sharaf. See, that's not right either. Wait a minute. Is that right? I might have to look this up, because I thought that, let's see, I'm gonna have to check this out, because I thought that Chris Barnett was fighting in this card. I might have been thinking of a future card. Let me look this up real fast, because that's gonna bug me, and I really want to know if this is wrong, because it has done this to me in the past. Okay, so yeah, some stuff changed around here, and I did not notice that, which is what it is. Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha. Dan Argueta versus Cody Haddon. Corey McKenna versus Julia Pilastri. See, I'm talking like from a couple days ago this changed. Junior Tafa versus Sean Sharaf. Nico Price versus Themba Garimbo. And then Jonathan Pierce versus Pat Sabatini. And CJ Vergara versus Ramazan Tamirov. That's your prelim card. So that brings us to the main. I mean, again, nothing big going on down there. I could see Vergara versus Tamirov being a good fight. Nico Price and Themba Garimbo. He's the guy that was like homeless basically, and then said he had like $7 to his name, and then The Rock like kind of took him under his wing and gave him some money and a car or some shit like that. But fighting Nico Price, that could be a good one. Junior Tafa, that might end early. But that's it. I mean, no big crazy fights on the prelims. So, I mean, this is just kind of a mediocre card, unfortunately. Some decent fights on here though, I guess, in the main card, and we'll start with Abdul Razak Alhassan versus Josh Frame in the middleweight division. We got both these guys coming off of losses. A lot of these guys are coming off of losses. It's just one of those cards. Razak Alhassan is 12-6, 6-6 in UFC. Like, Jesus, it's a 500 record. I mean, he's got a lot of KO TKOs in that column there. Never won by submission or decision. Against Josh Frame, 11-6 overall, 2-4 big time losing record in the UFC. Damn. Nothing crazy in any of those categories. So no big amounts in KO TKO subs or decisions, just kind of just there, man. And he's on a 2-fight losing streak. So I would say if it leans any which way, it'd be Alhassan with a KO or TKO. That looks like your best bet in this one. It's kind of tough. His coming off a loss to Joe Piper by submission in round 2. Before, I mean, he's on a win-loss type of record for Alhassan. That's why he's 6-6. So again, not a lot going on there. And then you got Josh Framed. I mean, there's Alhassan without the hair. I don't know why I picked that pick, but yeah, Josh Frame 2-4 in the UFC, coming off 2 losses. Roman Kopylov and Andre Petrosky, which bigger names than Alhassan has fought pretty much. His last win was against Jamie Pickett and Cedric Dumas. But I mean, again, 2-4 overall in the UFC. Nothing big. That big need to pick it, and it was still a unanimous decision win for him there. So yeah, I mean, this is just one of those fights, man. It could go either way. Let's hope for it being an exciting one. Moving on though, we have, I'm trying to see, Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. So this one could be good because I've seen both these guys really impressive wins, but they're both coming off of losses. I mean, look at Daniel. D-Rod is on a 3-fight losing streak. He looks like a dude that would not be on a losing streak, but looks aren't everything. Those tattoos don't do much for him in the cage. It's probably intimidating outside of it, but other than that, he's just come up short a lot on a 3-fight losing streak, and he's 37 years old, so that's tough, man. 17-5 overall, 7-4 in the UFC. Not too bad, still a winning record, you know. 8-1 KO TKOs, 4-1 by sub, and 5-3 by decision. Again, coming off a 3-fight losing streak. Alex Morono's 24-10 overall, 13-7 in the UFC. A lot of decision wins, never been submitted, has 7 wins by submission, 6-3 in KO TKOs, and he's also coming off a loss. Let's check out who D-Rod is coming off. These 3 losses were to Kelvin Gastelum, Ian Gary, and Neil Magny. So those are big names. Those are tough opponents. So for D-Rod to be on a 3-fight losing streak is understandable, I guess. Before that, he won against the Leech, Li Jingliang, Kevin Lee, as you can see here, and Preston Parsons and Mike Perry. He was on a 4-fight win streak there. All of those except for one being by decision, though. So, man, I kind of take back what I said, but D-Rod, I mean, any fight I've seen him in, I feel like I'm like excited for it, and then something big happens. But yeah, his record is not great, and he lost by Darce choke, head kick, and then by decision to Gastelum, which that Gastelum fight was not the best. So it's a tough one to go off of, but we'll see if he could turn it around here against Alex Morono, who is also coming off a loss. But let's check out who he lost to. Let's see. Nico Price, coming off a loss to Nico Price, who's actually on this card as well. but he had a win before that against Court McGee. He's another one of these win-loss guys. A win against Tim Means. He did put together a 4-fight win streak, starting with Donald Cerrone, but that was a while ago, 2021 through 22. He beat Mickey Gall, lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio. So, you know, you got two guys here who, I mean, have potential and could be exciting, but I mean, they've both been involved in some sleepers, so it's a tough one to kind of figure out. I'm gonna scroll right past these because Pilastri and McKenna are not on the main card anymore, which they were listed there before. So I probably should have looked a little closer on that one. No big deal. In their place, the only one I don't have in here that is fighting is Chidi Njokuani versus Jared Gordon. That has potential in the welterweight division. Let's see, after that we have Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. But real quick, Njokuani is 23-10. Jared Gordon is 23-9. Njokuani is coming off of a win over Rise McKee by split decision, and he's got 14 wins by KO TKO. So yeah, that's his big category there. And then we got Jared Gordon, 23-9, coming off a win over Wellington Turman. And then but he's 2-4 in the UFC. Holy shit. 11 wins by KO TKO, 8 wins by submission. Never been submitted. He's got a losing record by decision. So there's a quick breakdown of those two. Those are the only ones I didn't have anything prepped for because, again, they changed it up on me. I guess I should have checked multiple sources. That's my bad. No big deal. But now we got Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia in the lightweight division. Dawson is 21-2 overall, 9-1 in the UFC, 13-0 in submissions. So you can kind of tell where we're going with this one. 4-0 by decision, though, has not lost any decisions, so that's good. I mean, he only has one loss in the UFC, coming off a win against Rafa Garcia. We got 16-3 overall, 4-3 in the UFC. Not great there, but never been KO'd. Let's see, never been submitted. He's 8-0 by submission as well, 6-3 by decision. He's on a 2-fight win streak, so this could be a good ground game battle. It's looking like, because they both have a lot of wins by submission. But yeah, I mean, 4-3 for Rafa Garcia. Yeah, 9-1 for Grant Dawson. That's a big difference there in the UFC. Let's take a look at Grant Dawson, who he got the win over. Joe Solecki in June of this year. Before that, he lost to King Green, and that was a finish there in round 1. Before that, though, he was on a 3-fight win streak. 5-fight win streak, 6-fight win streak, 7, 8. Damn. He had a big win streak going on before that, but that spans all the way back to 2020. So Grant Dawson's one of those kind of sleeper guys where, you know, you can probably get some really good fights. Again, he only has one loss in the UFC, and that's the King Green. But that was recently. So, yeah, and let's see his opponent, Rafa Garcia, is coming off I think it was 2-fight win streak. Yep, against Clay Guida and Mahashate Haisier. Both decision wins, though. His last loss was to Drakkar Klose, and that was a decision as well. Man, a lot of decisions on his record here, but hasn't really fought too many big names like Grant Dawson has. So looking like a good one for Grant Dawson to win here. Rafa Garcia, though, trying to make it 3 in a row. Moving on to our co-main event, we got Brad Tavares versus Jun Young Park. Jun Young Park's that guy that did they call him the Iron Turtle for one. And if you look at him, it makes a whole lot of fucking sense. I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty damn good nickname. The Iron Turtle. I don't know. Where the fuck did somebody come up with something like that? but when you look at the guy and you hear the name, it just makes sense. But anyway, he did that funny little dance that he did when he knocked out an opponent a couple fights ago. Kind of went viral because, yeah, it was just a funny celebration, I guess. But Brad Tavares, 20-9 overall, 15-9 in the UFC, 5-5 in KO TKOs, 2-0 in submissions, 13-4 by decision. It's a lot of fucking decisions. Coming off a loss. Jung Young Park, 17-6 overall, 7-3 in the UFC. Let's see, we got 5-1, 6-2, and 6-3. Coming off a loss as well. So nothing major in any of those categories, but he's got winning records in all three. So let's take a look at Brad Tavares. Who did he lose to last? That was Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop. And that was a round 3 finish for Rodriguez by punches. So before that, Tavares beat Chris Weidman in his return after that nasty leg break that Weidman suffered. So yeah, I mean, Weidman's his only win since in his last 4 fights, he's only got 1 win, and that's against Weidman. So that's tough, but he lost to Bruno Silva, DDP. So I mean, some big names in there. He's lost to Adesanya before, Edmund Shabazian. So I mean, he's fighting some big names. He's beaten some big names. He's got the skills. So let's see what he can do against the Iron Turtle, Jung Young Park. I don't know. I just think it's fucking funny. He's got a funny nickname, and it just suits him so well. So it's hard not to laugh every time you say it. But let's check out who Park is coming off a loss to. Andre Muniz. That was a split decision, so a close fight there back in December. Before that, he was on a 4-fight win streak. Not a lot of big names for those wins. Elber Duraev and Eric Anders, really the only two. He's lost twice to RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez, and he's got a win over Marc-Andre Barrio as well. So I mean, he's got a little bit of everything. I mean, he can fight on the feet. He's got the striking, but he's definitely got some good submissions, and seen some impressive submissions by him before. So we'll see if he can get Tavares to the ground and maybe get some submissions in there. But Tavares is tough on the feet, and he's tough on the ground too. He's kind of an overall guy. So I'm just hoping for a good fight in this one, for a decent co-main. We'll see what the lighter weight guys can give us in the main event. So let's move on to Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira for the main event of UFC Vegas 98. I don't know why I said it. Why the fuck I said 93? Yeah, so Brandon Royval, number 1 in the rankings. Tatsuro Taira, number, I think it said 5, or 4, something like that. No, number 6. I'm sorry. Wait, what the fuck? Why does it say 3? See, this is what I don't understand. It's showing Royval as 3 and Taira as 6, but on the poster that the UFC put out, it says Royval is number 1 and Taira is number 5. I don't know. It is what it is. This is why it's hard to get it right 100% of the time. Because your sources are just don't seem. Oh, it's okay. So it's worldwide. All right, pay attention, Eric. That's why it's worldwide. So that makes a little more sense. So Royval's number 1 in the UFC right now. Taira's number 5 in the UFC, but they're number 3 and number 6 worldwide. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Royval is 16-7 overall, 6-3 in the UFC. I mean, that's still not like the greatest record. It's a winning record, but damn. 4-1 in KO TKOs, 9-1 by submission, 3-5. That's a losing record by decision. So he definitely doesn't want to go to decision. Not a good percentage there, but he is coming off a win. Tatsuro Taira is undefeated overall, 16-0, 6-0 in the UFC, 5-0 by 5 wins by KO TKO, 7 by sub, 4 by decision, undefeated overall. 6-fight win streak. Technically it's 16 because he's never been defeated. So but yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough opponent for Royval, even though he's number 1 in the rankings. He's coming off a loss to, or I'm sorry, did I say coming off a loss? He's coming off a win, but before that, yeah, Brendan Moreno, split decision win for him there. Before that, he fought for the title and lost to Alexandre Pantoja. But I mean, he's fought Matt Snell. He's lost to Pantoja twice actually, and lost to Moreno once, and then beat him once. He's beaten Kai Kara France, Tim Elliott. So I mean, he's got some names under his belt. That's why he's probably still the number 1, you know, contender. So he could easily beat, not easily, but I'm saying if he beats Tyra, who's undefeated, he may be number 5, but at least he keeps him in the running for the next title shot if someone can beat Pantoja, or if Pantoja just doesn't seem to have any more opponents in the waiting. So this is one of those important fights for Royval. I think he definitely needs to get the win here to keep his ranking, being that Tyra's undefeated, but with being undefeated, that's going to be a tough opponent for him. So we'll see how it fares for him. And let's check out Tatsuro Taira. Oh, he's got those submissions for sure, so that's something that he's got to see if he can get Taira to the ground, maybe put him in a slick submission. But Taira's undefeated everywhere, so it's going to be tough. And let's see, his last opponent was Alex Perez. That was a knee injury from a takedown, so that's how that fight ended. He beat Carlos Hernandez, Edgar Chairez, CJ Vergara. So no crazy big names, but he's still 16-0 overall, undefeated. Lots of good striking, some ground and pound, and he's got some submissions under his belt too. So this could definitely be an interesting main event. I feel like the two main fights on the main card are pretty good. The rest have potential. So yeah, check it out, enjoy it. At least we got fights this weekend, regardless of anything. Let's check out the start time real quick. It's 4:00 p.m., so it's a little bit of an early start. 4 p.m. Arizona time on ESPN and ESPN Plus. And that wraps it up for UFC Vegas 98 and for episode 122 of the GRP. Thank you for everybody that's joining in. We got a couple new people or maybe one new person in the chat. Rick Allen's always there harassing me, but it is what it is. Infinity, always there with the support. I appreciate you. We got Cold Art Maker, jumps in the beginning, always adds in his part and bounces, or maybe keeps watching. I'm not sure, but either way, I appreciate the interaction. And then we got Realize. Tough one to say, so I'll just call him Realize, him or her. Sorry, don't mean to misgender if that's the case. But regardless, thank you to them for being in the chat as well. Kept me going with some good interaction. Strong opinions about Ilia Topuria. I agree with most of it. I'm just still unsure about it. I'm waiting. I need him for my own personal sake to show me something that's going to set it more in stone. And beating Max Holloway is a good step in that direction. And that might actually get him almost all the way there for me. But we'll see. So that should be a good one coming up here for the next pay-per-view. As far as anything else goes, thanks again to my sponsor, Noctane Smelling Salts. Check it out if you're interested. You can start off slow with the white cap, not so strong. Get to the red cap. It's the strongest, most potent. Keeps you alert, keeps you awake. Good little adrenaline rush. Hit that QR code. Go check out their website. It's a good one. And yeah, as far as anything else goes, that's it for me today. Come back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Arizona time. I'm always live. Hit that notification bell and you'll know when I go live or when I put out a video. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, go check out my social media going on down there. And yeah, do all the good stuff you're supposed to do on YouTube. Help me grow the channel. I appreciate everybody for tuning in or listening later. You can also listen on Spotify. You can watch the video there too, but I prefer you do that here. But you can listen to the audio only portion of the show if you would like. on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, really. So that's it for me. I'm out of here. Take it easy. Have a good night. Peace.